So I am attorney Tanisha Henry. I ran for common police court judge in this current election. I was number 13 on the ballot. I was not endorsed by the party nor backed by the Bar Association.
Wow.
However, I still have a right to run. I am not less qualified because I couldn't afford to pay to play for politics, nor was I accepted by the bar because they have an automatic presumption of no for anyone who's practiced less than 10 years. This is my 10th year, so I'm not sure how that was applicable to me. But if you don't know how elections are controlled in the city, you kind of just run with what's been trusted for decades, which is understandable. And then oftentimes that information is not shared with the public, so the people don't know that they have options. Or they feel that, well, they did the vetting for me, so I should just go with that. I was vetted by countless other organizations, entities, politicians, newspapers, etc., and who did actually back me. But if you're not aware that you can be vetted this way or that way, you kind of just go with what you've always known. And so that's where I fell. I managed to get about 62,000 votes. I might have been about 14,000 votes away from a seat, which is impressive because I don't come from politics. I don't know anything about politics. My family wasn't raised to be political, and they actually, we were taught to stay out because of the wickedness, because of the corruption, because of the money involved. And while that's right, wrong, or indifferent, depending on, where you come from and what you believe, this experience has taught me that my family was not wrong. They taught me right, and they taught me well. However, I'm of the mind of, we as people complain all the time about things that we don't like, things that are not happening. So even when people come to me as friends, I tell them, put your money where your mouth is. You're gonna put up or shut up. Somebody has to step out and do something. And so knowing nothing, having a campaign team where none of us come from politics, having no money, and making the choice to run against a machine, I did that. And if you look at the numbers, I did that well. So I understand that I don't have a reason to hang my head in shame, and that we're just gonna have to do it again. Make some adjustments. We learned a lot. I'm grateful for the experience and what I learned. I still don't like a lot of things, and I learned that I also don't like a lot of politicians, even our favorite. You learn something different about all of them when you go through the process, and it's really nasty and wicked out here. I don't want to be a part of that. I've always distinguished myself from that because I thought growing up that politics were about people, about democracy, about having a voice, and about making a decision. But the city is not set up that way, and people don't know that. I don't want to sound like what is it?
So a loser.
Thank you. Because I have a lot to be grateful for. I met a lot of people. I was on a lot of radio syndications, and people have been calling from other states saying, we know your name here. How can we help you in Philadelphia? I'm grateful for the opportunity to just have a platform, to be able to talk with people, to engage in communication and conversation and kind of bounce off ideas off of people all over the country. I could not have imagined something like that coming from this. I'm grateful even to be here today, so I thank you. The thing is, now what? I'm from West Philly, born and raised. I went to, what was it called? Bridegroom Christian Academy, a Christian school that is still in existence. It's now called Grace Temple Academy. Joanna McClinton went there. We were actually there at the same time. Then I went to Bryant Elementary in West Philly, Hamilton Elementary in West Philly, Girls High, and then I went on to Howard University. For law school, I went out to the Midwest. Now, I try not to say this in public because you never know, people take things out of context. But I had my HBCU experience, but I knew that I had to do great things in the world, so I went to the Midwest to have my counterpart experience. Because I didn't just study law, I studied people. I studied communication. I also studied languages. I've even lived in another country that was really poor and actually went to school there. All these things were important to me so that I can be a global leader, if you can kind of catch that concept. I know what I came to this earth to do. I know what's deposited in me and what I have to release. And so I had to prepare myself, study to show that self-approved. And people look at me, they think I'm like 20, far from it. I laugh a lot and smile a lot, and people have told me, you don't look like you could be a judge, you don't look tough, until you hear me speak, or until you learn that I've already had the quasi-judicial capacity. I've already sat as a hearing officer, used to be called a master. I've already had my own courtroom. I've already made my own decisions. When we talk about tough decisions, because we talk about families and children and things like that. So I've already done the job. What I learned from myself in doing that job, and why I had to do it at this scale, is because people would come into my courtroom and they would be like, oh, well, Judge such and such never let me talk, or Judge such and such always treat me like this, or I was judged wrong before I even got there. But the way I handle my cases is that I would turn litigation into a conversation, and I would talk about the law. I would explain the law. And most people didn't have attorneys, and even if they did, I can gauge whether or not that attorney explained to anything to you before you got in here, or if y'all just met outside the door, which I think is inappropriate as an attorney. And to me, it communicates they do not have your best interest at heart, and they don't care what's about to happen in the courtroom as long as they got paid. Unfortunately, there are a lot of attorneys in Philly who are like that. So I would slow things down, explain it, and make sure that everybody grasped it before we moved on to the next step. This is why this person goes first. They filed this, and this is what they're asking for. Do you understand it? If they're granted what they're asking for, what that looks like for you and your family. So I kind of made sure everybody knew. Not to play favorites, but I wasn't going to leave anybody behind. And the people would grasp that, and they would thank me after their hearings because they learned something, not just for that hearing, but something that they can carry with them. I would do problem solving. I'm a trained mediator, nationally recognized. So the tools that I was given to these families and these individuals, they can take home and apply them, because I always say, we're not going home with you at night. Right. All you have is this court order. So if something else happens, you do the best you can with the order, but you're still going to need strategies and tools to work with each other past this moment before you can even get back in here. I will have ex-murderers and child molesters to come into the courtroom asking for access to their children. And even if the answer was no, they will still thank me at the end of the hearing because I did not belittle them, I did not emasculate them, and they would be like, well, you saw my history, how come you didn't treat me like so-and-so? I don't have to do that to do my job. People have to live beyond litigation. People should not come to the courthouse and leave worse than they already felt coming in the door. But I think sometimes when people get the rope, they kind of get confused with that kind of power, and sometimes, it's the natural human tendency to abuse power. But that's why when I talk to in the candidate forums, I ask people, it's not about all these credentials. We all lawyers. We all went to law school. We all passed the bar exam. We've all had some manner of cases. But what are these people's character like? What is their propensity to do the right thing? If we're paying to play politics, can they be bought? Can they be sold? I'm not one. You can call my mother, my father, and every past I ever had. I don't care who you are, how much money you got, how much power you got. I stand on what's right, I stand on what's fair, and I will call you out. Right is right and wrong is wrong. So I'm not swayed by things like that, but I have a history of not being swayed by things like that. And all my religious leaders and all my employers showed up for my campaign and grabbed the mic and told them that is exactly who she's always been. And so even at times where I've had to get endorsements and they would call and ask for money, okay, but I ain't the one to be controlled though. I understand that you gotta pay to put people in the street, so okay, I'll pay for that. But I ain't never gonna be nobody puppet. I've never been. I'm the oldest child in my family. I lay down the law. I'm the first attorney in my mother's family. So you're not gonna be able to persuade me. I come from nothing. Coming from walking to school and I didn't have soles in my shoes. Even when I lived in Barbados as a missionary, I was a teenage missionary. How many people do you know was a teenage missionary? I had to walk to school for miles. There were no sidewalks. We didn't have a car. And I was on dirt roads, dodging cars driving this way and chickens gathered at my ankles. But I could look outside, my neighbors were publicly bathing because everybody didn't have access to indoor running water. Now, I thought I was poor right here in Philly, but
you
haven't
see poor
seen
yet.
It kind of checks you, right? It gives you another perspective in life. So I've seen and experienced many things, not just here in Philadelphia, but across the globe. And so that's what makes me relatable. That's what makes me grounded. That's what makes me easy to talk to. That's what expands my mind, that when you're coming about this legal matter, I understand that there's some underlying issues. There's some other reasons why you got here. I understand that you might have made a bad decision because you were in a tough spot. I've been a defendant in a courtroom, so I know what that's like. So I get it. I always tell people, yes, we follow the law, open up the book, we give our reasoning and things like that, but you cannot ignore those underlying circumstances. I believe that you have to consider people's traumatic life experiences and the things that brought them to this point. And when there's an opportunity for the court to intervene, even on those things, whether it's a housing issue or a truancy issue, my question is the reason why. As a trained mediator, I'm trained to get to the why. The why is way more important than the what and the how. We need to understand your child is truant because what? because you work overnight and you're a single parent. So who's there to get these kids up? Kids up playing video games all night and you're not home. So it's not necessarily that they're completely lacking supervision, which they are, which is a legal matter, but is there something that we can do to help? Is there services that we can provide? Is there a way that we can get door-to-door transport for your children? Those are the things that matter more to me than, boom, slamming a book down on people. For me, it's a total person approach. We got to hit all factors, again, because people have to live beyond litigation. When they walk out the door, they're still hit with real life. And so that's what I come with. I can't say that everybody that I ran against have that same mentality, have the same exposure, or live those same real life experiences. Well, I'm born and raised in West Philly. I still live in West Philly. I live in a neighborhood where I'm not allowed to walk my dog. I live in a neighborhood where I stand at the bus stop and they say, you can't be outside, can you move? So even as an attorney, I have had to get my food at food banks. And so I'm living a real Philadelphia experience currently. I feel like that's important because when you come into a courtroom, people always have this facade, which may be true, that is us versus them. They're sitting here, judges sitting there, and they think that the attorneys are all in cahoots and it's the whole system against them, which unfortunately oftentimes is very true. But that's why I'm separating myself. I'm not them. I'm one of y'all. I live in the same neighborhood as y'all. I have the same life experience as y'all. I got a DHS history too. No stranger to police kicking in my door. I'm no stranger to being a defendant in a courtroom. No stranger to being a divorcee or having lost a child. I look young, and I thank God that I don't look like what I've been through, but I have real life experiences, which I think is helpful when it comes to having to make decisions for people's lives that are going to impact them for a lifetime. I'm Tanisha Henry.
Good job. Awesome. Any questions? Questions?
Well,
Q&A?
First of all, the Lord bless you real good. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
I think you described yourself and what you bring to the table very, very accurately and down to earth. We could get it. The thing I think is unfortunate, because when I looked at the flyer and I saw that we had two candidates who had run, I'm like, well, isn't this like a week too late? Or not just a week, because these types of things, this type of venue that we're in, where you're sharing like this, I think you have to actually, like we say in the church, you got to get out to the people. You got to meet the people where they are. And certainly this facilitates that, but even getting people to come here, people who are not necessarily long-time residents in a community, who really feel vested in the community. I've lived in my home for 51 years, and some of you may have been long-time residents, but when you have a community where people are like tenants, they don't consider themselves to have a vested interest in the neighborhood, and the fact of, they may not have seen the supermarkets leave the communities, and then the shopping, the stop and goes, or the Chinese restaurants, or you see that more in healthy food, where they're still living in a food desert. Mm-hmm. So we've become very, have a lot of us who have become very tolerant to less. You expect less. So I think like one of the things we just need to work on is how do we go to getting you all out, literally in the neighborhoods. I'm kind of like a street evangelistic type of a person, but I feel like you actually gotta go where the people are, because even though this is a forum where you would think that the people in the community could come and be here, it's a struggle even to get folks to come inside. You just might have to actually go on the street, set up a bullhorn, say we're gonna have a community meeting, and just do it like that, and just go to people on their turf, on their corner.
Mm-hmm. We've done that before, and that's a good move. It actually does help. It depends, because sometimes they treat you like a Jehovah's Witness. They actually just run in the house. So, I mean, literally, I had share food and everything, and it was like, I was like, am I deodorant? Maybe what's happening? What's going on? No, they literally ran. You thought a dog was chasing them. But you know, if you do it consistently, it's the consistency that's going to make a difference. Any more questions before we introduce our next candidate?
So just one comment. You're in this ward, this area. So it was at least four.
4.
I
At least four
went
forums.
to the school at 9th and Lindley. That's where I voted.
No, he said forums in which they had.
Forums, the judicial forums, there was at least 4 in this area.
In this area,
There was one right down the street at the,
I wasn't even aware. I wasn't aware
so
of it.
that's your ward leader and committee people. That's kind of more than them, not them, but that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do.
Well, one of the things too is our marketing. Like we can't to advertise, but to advertise flyers, like the flyers, like what I just printed right here for the RCO topics. This costs quite a bit of money right here. And can you imagine? There's 76 houses on the average block, and that's only one block, and it's like 39 cents a page, right? And then even if you put them in 4s, and I've been to RC over here since 2015. I literally have been up and down almost every step. I can tell you almost who lives where. And though it's been a couple minutes now since I've last done it. But I will say is this. We need to have free time dedicated on the airways, on newspaper time, because we pay enough taxes.
So I can actually answer some of that. I have been on multiple radio syndications during this campaign cycle, such that my syndications have reached other states. My campaign materials have also been cited in other states, and people repost them on social media. I've had social media influencers back my campaign, rappers, politicians, local celebrities. I went outside. I chose those avenues because they could reach further than my feet could ever take me. And so, to me, I tried. I had a citywide mailer. A citywide mailer is anywhere from $40K to $1 million. So I had to join a team of people to do that, and it was Larry Krasner's mailer, and supposedly it went to every door.
I saw it.
I tried as best I could. I showed up to as many forums as I physically could, and sometimes, and then these are after work. On any given night, I was in 1 to 8 places per night during this campaign cycle. I was hospitalized by emergency twice during this campaign cycle because that's how demanded it is to get yourself in front of people. But no matter how many places we showed up, I don't ever think we saw more than 40, 50 people.
If you saw 40, you were surprising. We got to get Ali on. Thank you so much. Introduce yourself one more time.
Tanisha Henry.
Okay, thank you, Tanisha Henry. And thanks for your devotion to the community and to the cause, to being a judge.